that's the thing that inspires us all, is knowing that we're all human, that we're all going to make mistakes, and that the goal in life is to always be striving for something more.
I always love to talk about first impressions of New York, especially with people who are still visiting it and have matured and found what they love to do and get to come back and continue to see New York through that filter, but it's different, right? What was it like? And I can make this easy for everybody. Jared, for you being the youngest of the band, what was it like when you stepped off that plane and got to Manhattan for the first time as a musician?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's weird. The first time I kind of came in the music world was when Caleb and Nathan were signing a record deal, before I was in the band, before I knew I was going to be in the band, before I played bass. My mom and I came with them to kind of cheer them on and just be there in the room.
You must have been green with envy at that point in your life.
I was livid.
Yeah.
No, no, it was great. I was so proud. Told like everybody in my school, my brother's got a record deal, and it was like a big deal. But it felt like the center of the world. It felt like it's almost like too much to quantify. It was just like coming from where we came from, this huge city and so much going on. It just felt like you were on another planet.
I mean, to swing over to the other side of the table to Matthew, obviously you weren't on that trip. So when you came and you were in the band at that point and you played here, not probably personally, but as a band, what was it like? Just that early Kings of Leon?
I can't really remember the first trip to New York. Can you guys help me at all? What did we do here? Was it like publicity?
It might have been that Hyatt trip that me and you got into a fight and they showed it on Telling the Sky.
Probably.
It might have been that trip.
Yeah, it was just the first like big city.
Wait, which scene in Telling the
America.
Sky was that?
Matthew and I, we got into a argument over a vending machine.
Oh, that's when you went to 4 floors up and down trying to find where to get some sodas.
We're close in age, and we've always been close when we grew up together, so it's kind of like a brotherly thing.
Did you ever get that $1 back from Matthew?
He never gave it back.
Never gave it back.
I've been more
Says a lot about your
him.
character, you know. I mean, so it's interesting. People always thought Matthew.
I'm not sure if I owe the $1.
Well, welcome back to New York, and congratulations on what has been an incredible. I mean, really, as a lifelong fan of the band, we go back. I mean, at least the three of us go back to sort of 2004,
Three,
Three?
late three, early
I think it was
4.
3, yeah.
on the brown couch.
Mm-hmm.
I think immortalized 5 years later on the brown couch when you mentioned that, and Caleb said you were fat back then, which
Oh my God.
I said that?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like me.
Which brown couch?
I think he would have said that.
No, it was definitely you.
Why would I say that? I'm the nice one.
He was watching tape last night. He knows it's you.
Well, you look great.
Definitely.
You look great
Thanks.
now.
I think we've all aged well.
Yeah.
I think we've all done well. Yeah, we go back a long way. And getting back to my point, I feel like this is such an inspiring era of the band, not just for yourselves, but for fans.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like a second life for this band, and it's it's still surprising to me. I think it's just once you kind of start to feel that feeling again, you really start to realize just how fortunate you are to be in the position that we're in, but also to, I mean, we're as hungry as we've ever been. The future, as far as I'm concerned, is brighter than anything we've done before. Even like this, we're playing Forest Hills tonight, and after tonight, we have 10 shows left on this tour. For many years, that would have been like, all right, I can see the finish line.
You guys,
I can't wait.
You got light in your eyes. It's incredible.
And I'm looking at the end of this tour like, oh man, what's next? I'm so excited for the future. There's already songs in the works. There's already ideas that we're kicking around and plans being made. I just feel like, in a way, I feel like, we've always worked hard and we've always taken what we do seriously, but there's also been a part of it that I feel like we were missing out on it because we were so used to the routine and doing the work and, okay, we're doing this, now this is the set list, now we're going to go. And I feel like for a handful of years, we never sat back and appreciated what was happening. And now more than ever, not only are we appreciating what we're doing right now, like I said, we're just so excited for what's next.
Can you pinpoint, at least for you, Caleb, and then we'll ask the band, where you think now with a bit of perspective and hindsight, this kind of new revelation of what's possible came from?
I think it was like a culmination of things. One of them being our mother passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that too. I really
Yeah,
was.
yeah, of course. It was, it's sad, still sad, unexpected, and just kind of one of those jarring moments in your life where you just kind of go like, oh, nothing is promised. It really made us kind of appreciate everything a little more. But it also kind of, in a way, it made the goal higher. It made the dream bigger. It made us go like, all right, well, now we really have something to work for, So yeah, that happened.
Because there's a little bit of a safety there, right? When the people who love you are there and they love you unconditionally, at least I think for human beings, it's easy for us to fall into sort of like accepted behaviors because it's like, well, we'll be fine because there's always a safety net there. And it's like when that goes, and I mean this with the greatest of love, like that's the order of things.
Yeah.
And if it happens too soon, it happens too soon. But the order of things is at some point you've got to stand on your own 2 feet and figure out what you actually represent, right?
Yeah, and we also it kind of showed just how important her role was, not only in our lives but in a lot of people's lives. With her siblings and her family dynamic, you saw once she was out of the equation, everything just felt unsure. She was kind of that rock. And that's what happened with us, with the band. She was never involved in the band, but when she passed away, everything started to feel unsure. And I started to notice, that even our crew members and stuff were kind of, it felt like they were about to give us the old fist bump and be like, all right, it's been nice. I got to go do something else now. And so it just lit the fire, and it wasn't, back in the day, it was like this competition thing where it was like, oh yeah, we're going to be the biggest band, the best band. And now I feel like it's to a place where it's like, we're going to do the greatest that we can possibly do. And we are the only people that are going to be able to judge that. Success isn't going to tell that story. Our fans aren't even going to be able to tell that story. We're going to look at each other and we're going to know if we are giving it our all and if we're loving every second of it. And I can say for myself, this is the first time in my career that I've ever felt this way.
What a relief.
Yeah.
What a relief to come from something so sad. But to come to a realization where, like you say, a certain amount of that self-imposed pressure. And it was a mad time, Nath, wasn't it? I mean, back then, it was fast. Like I watched Hella in the Sky again not long ago because I knew we were going to talk, and I was like, yeah, I liked that film. I thought it was a cool documentary. It was. I loved seeing and meeting all the characters and the family, and I love to get an insight, and I love to know the story was real, because that brings me to my point. I mean, there was questions about even the validity of the story. It happened so fast. It seemed like it was just out of control at the time.
Yeah, I remember one show, I think a journalist showed up with like swabs or something, one of like DNA to like test to make sure that we were truly related.
That's really going to go a
A
whole
lot of
other
people
level
thought
for
we
a
were
scoop.
put together,
Yeah.
like a label.
Well, there was. I mean, I think with any kind of like genre that gets bursts onto the
Oh,
scene,
right,
like
of
the
course,
boy
yeah.
bands and stuff like that. When indie music did that, there were bands. We know of bands that kind of got put together behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and labels would do that and put them on a fake indie label.
And they swabbed us and we had COVID. And that was 2003.
You're ground
We were
one,
the
you're ground
first
zero.
ones.
You're ground zero way back in the day.
That was right before our tour in Wuhan.
I just love the idea of a journalist walking away with 4. Like, imagine if you were like cool about it and walked
Yeah.
away with 4
You're like-
swabs. Like, what am I gonna do with these fucking swabs?
Yeah.
I
My
wanted
dad
to give
literally
it.
was like,
I wanted to give it to 4 random fans, a girl, like just mixed up, or they're like they're not. Not only are they not related, one of them is pregnant.
There's so many layers to this. It's not even like this is the era of 23andMe. Like, it's like, what are you gonna do with that? Like, I have a pregnant girl. I have a.
He was
I've got a
obviously
friend that
trying to
works
make
at the
a point.
FBI. They're gonna pull some strings for me and run these swabs real quick.
Turns out that you're wanted in 7 different states. Yeah, Jared, you make a good point. I mean, if you'd come out on your own terms and just been a band, standing on your own 8 feet, that would have already been like quite a shocking sort of image and sound at the time. It sounded like it was from another time and another planet. But you were swept up in this era of like, you know, everyone's felt so put together at that moment in time. Like, how can all these bands from New York just walk out looking like they do, impeccable? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was no time to invest in it. And so I guess for you guys, it was the same. There was no time for you to invest in it either. It was just go.
No, absolutely. We were like a documentary band. Like we learned how to play in front of people. Like that first album, I did not know how to play bass at all. Like really, really just the most simple bass playing you could ever have on a professional album. And so, yeah, we just kind of got thrown to the fire and did it in front of everybody. You know, we wanted to be in a band. We had no idea that it would be successful and people would hear us or see us. And so, yeah, it was a very weird, I think that's why people liked us, and especially people from the UK, because we were like just weird.
Well, we were hungry as well. You got to remember at the time, I mean, the way the press was structured there between the Enemy and all the rags and the papers, and then Radio 1 and XFM and all these places, we couldn't survive without something exciting and new. And the internet and social media wasn't filling that void. We were searching to do it for people. So you came along, we were like, yep, we're in. And so you had to like deal with that stress as well of us in the UK. It's like Bob Dylan says, you know, they can kill you with kindness too. Right?
Yeah, they wanted it from us. They wanted us to be like just about as bad.
I think we wanted
bad
you to
as we
break
could
up
be.
after the first EP. I think it was like, it was a
But
beautiful,
they
look how
wanted-
beautiful they are. They became, they saw, they fucked up, they left, you know?
Yeah.
They wanted us on drugs and just so there was like story after story. You know what I mean?
We gave them what they
I
wanted.
was going to say, you gave us what we wanted for a time.
Yeah, but I feel like that there was kind of a niceness for us to be able to leave that and then come back to the States where people weren't that interested and didn't really care. So it kind of, we would go and, you know, have stars in our eyes and come home and get grounded pretty quickly.
By our mom
Yeah.
for doing drugs.
Which helped us,
Bet.
which helped our work ethic because it was a constant trying to prove ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we'd be like, I swear, man, over there, everywhere we play, they know the songs. And then we'd come home and that wasn't the case. So then, you know, there was this competition, like, how do we win over America? How do we win over this? Which kind of started to form our sound. So anything that we've done along the way that was a little confusing or musically didn't necessarily connect, it was us just searching. Because like Jared said, we kind of, from the word go, there were people watching. Not the whole world, but enough to where it was like, okay, you know, we've kind of set a standard for ourselves. We can't go down. We got to just keep going forward.
Caleb, you headlined Glastonbury before you broke America. I mean, you know, you played the Pyramid stage.
Unbelievable.
That because the Times tour and that set list is widely regarded amongst fans pre-international breakthrough as being one of the greatest modern set lists in Glastonbury history. I mean, that shit is out of control. Again, I watched that the other day. I went on a deep dive, boys. I did. I listened to every album. I was like, oh my God, I love this band. I'm so excited to see you. I just went in on everything. And I watched the Glastonbury performance. Fuck, man. You were so tight and so ready for that moment. It blew my mind that America hadn't even opened its door to you really properly yet at that point, and how ready you were. And a blessing in a way.
Yeah. But that was one of those things where that moment, we knew it was a big moment because we had been in the papers over there. So we saw the Enemy magazines and the big magazines, and we knew that Glastonbury was like the, you know, kind of the pinnacle. But even in that moment, we always assume like, oh, this is just the first time we headline Glastonbury. We're going to be doing this every other year for the rest of it, you know. And here we are. We haven't done it since, which even makes it more special. And now we're like, wow, that opportunity, you know, was crazy
Do you know
big.
how many people get to headline? I mean, it's a finite amount of people that get to play the Super Bowl. It's a finite amount of people that headline the Pyramid stage in history. And it's a very small amount of people that return. You know, I do think it was a real high point in the band's journey. And if it hadn't gotten bigger and you hadn't led you to this point now, making without a doubt one of your finest albums yet at this point, it would have been a great place to check out too. I mean, it was fucking awesome that night. right? Has anyone got any really fun memories of that particular night before we move on?
I remember being the most nervous I had been up to that point. Like, I just remember being backstage, and the guys, we were trying to play it cool. We were staying at a little country house, like a little resort type
B&B.
place.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we drove down and we were playing it cool, not going to be nervous. And our record label came back and made us all nervous.
Why did they do that, man? They've got to come back there and just G you up.
Yeah, talking about how like massive this is. Like, this is a big deal, boys. Like, this is a really big deal. And just
I was nervous too. That's all I remember is just being really nervous before. Was it after Only About the Night?
no before
It wasn't?
no.
It was before.
We played.
That's
We
crazy. It was
crawled.
2007. You start with Crawl.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
And you go straight
we
to
started
Black
Crawl
Thumbnail,
because
which was like-
Crawl was on Only About the Night, so it was just
But no one had
recorded
heard
No one
the
had
song.
heard
I
it.
know, but
Because I heard it, and I
was,
remember
like,
being backstage
pre-release.
to run out to see you play, and I heard, and I was like, holy shit, they're starting with Crawl.
crazy.
And I remember, I'll never forget what I thought in that moment. I was like, the fucking nuts on this band, man, coming out at the Pyramid stage and playing a song no one's heard. But then, when the crowd starts singing, I mean, you must remember that clearly, and if not, go back and watch it. Just allow yourself to go back and watch the crowd singing every word of Black Thumbnail from the minute you start singing. The verse back at you so loud that night, it's unbelievable. And it's not even a single. I mean, it's a fan favorite, but it's not even a single.
Yeah, the night when we were in that B&B the night before, I remember the Arctic Monkeys were staying there too. And they were trying to convince me, and they got pretty close. There for a second, I was thinking, that's a pretty good idea. They were trying to get me to come on stage on a horse to like, as our headlining set. I think
That
they
would have
were
been awesome.
They were just like, just lean in to being the country boys, like go
know
out
what?
on a horse.
Caleb, you know what would be right good, yeah? Is if you trot out on that stage on a stallion.
That was about
We
it.
might use that in the future. That'd be awesome.
There's a song on this new album, which is one of my favorite, and the whole album is start to finish, peak era Kings of Leon writing and performing. And I applaud you as a fan for that. And thank you as a fan for that, for giving us that. But Scene, I love. I love Scene because, well, I'm also a Bauhaus fan, and to me, it's the more obscure, darker side of Kings of Leon that you're able to go to, and the imagery is heavy, and it really made me think of that time too, Caleb, and the fact that you don't seem to wrestle with this anymore, but this idea of being that person on the mountain, unseen, and yet obviously wanting to be the band that broke America, that having that success, and just how you feel now with some maturity and some experience of kind of recognizing that both those sides of your personality have at times been true.
Yeah. I wrestled for a long time, even, recently, up until I would say probably the making of this album. I wrestled with the, kind of being the front man or being the guy out there. I always love bands, and I love bands that stick it out. And, there's always the fight that makes you go like, I don't need you guys, But I feel like with age and maturity, it's like, I don't, it's like a marriage. It's like, it seems like it'd be easy to just walk away, but how much better of a story is it if we don't? If we just stick this out and we grow together. And even if it's only for us to be able to look at each other as that band, that has this long history and go like, man, we did it the way that we wanted to do it.
Who do you tell stories to at the end of it all? At the end of the day, right, you're either going to tell stories to people who weren't there, and most of us are going to listen to those stories and go, oh, it sounds like you had a great life.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we're doing you a service by hearing you tell your stories. But you're going to get to be able to tell stories to each other.
Yeah.
And really share those stories and those memories and those feelings, right? Like,
Yeah, it's once I kind of shed that skin, I feel like I know everything happens for a reason, but I look back and go like, oh man, all those years that I was keeping myself from being this person because I was afraid, and now I'm just like, man, what a wasted opportunity because I'm kind of good at that.
yeah.
Now that I'm doing it, I'm like, man, it hasn't taken me long to really own that role. And when we walk off stage, it's just like the way that we talk to each other now. You know, just anything that's spontaneous happening on stage, any little thing that I say into the microphone that's unexpected, we all just kind of go like, oh man, that moment was cool. Oh, that was, and we didn't do that for so long because we were like, nope, this is how we're going to do it. We know what the set list is. We're going to go out there. We're going to play fast and hard, and we're not going to smile. And we're just, you know, and now I feel like we're all just kind of going like, oh man, this is crazy.
Is this
Yeah,
a
we
relief
just
for
don't take
everybody?
ourselves as seriously.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
kind of some of the ego is kind of gone that maybe we had.
And
We're just older and
the fans, the people, like when we walk off stage, when I'm talking to my wife, I'm like, babe, you don't understand what's happening out here. Like, people are looking at us like we are saviors. You know, we are bringing hope and joy and happiness to people. We don't know what's happening in their daily lives. You can look at people in the crowd and be like, I know if those two had a conversation with each other, they would not get along. Like, they look like opposite worlds. They look like, and everywhere we're going, it's just like the diversity and the age gaps between people. It's like unbelievable. And people are looking at us like, thank you.
Give us something
Yes.
that we can hold on to and take home.
And because of that, we're getting fed. Like, we are leaving there going like, oh man, that it feels like we're all in it together. You know, it's not the band and the fans. It's like, all right, tonight, here we go. Another party. Let's have fun. Let's do what we're, you know, here to do. And
I've never had a tour where more fans send me pictures of me grinning, like from ear to ear up there, like, and that's not like for show or for, like, I'm truly having a blast up there every night. And that's so fun to know that before a show, you're about to get to go for 2 hours, unplug from your daily life and get to go up there and have fun. And I feel like with them, it feels like we're at our rehearsal space. Like, it's hard for me to realize the gravity of like, oh wow, this is like big until you hear the crowd in between songs. And Caleb has to step back from the mic and all you can do is just smile because it's just like insane that these people are that much into your music. And 20 plus years in to be able to still do that, man, what a blessing, you know?
It would have been such a tragedy if any of the various points in your individual or collective journeys had proven too heavy, too much. And like we all know that because you know why we know? Not just because people write about this shit, but because we all go through those moments. People go through those moments every day in relationships. I can't carry on in this relationship with you anymore. I don't want to stick in this job anymore. I'm giving up on this training. I've tried so hard. I'll never make it. There's a breaking point for everybody, right? So, okay, let's get something tangible here as a band that I think I can say as a compliment is you've survived that. You've survived some really heavy times, and in particular, just losing your mum, which could easily have separated all four of you to decide to go do your own things and choose a different path in life. Losing your parents, traumatic. What has been crucial to your story that's allowed you to push through and survive, do you think?
For me personally, I mean, I feel like it kind of sounds cliche, but just the work that we put in allows us to do what we do now. It's like the fans, we can make albums for us now. Like it doesn't really matter. You know, we can put out an album and it cannot be good. And we can still go play shows all over America, all over Europe and play our songs, the work that we put in. You know, we can go play those songs. They're going to sing them. They're going to love them. It doesn't matter. So at this point, we can just kind of do everything for us. And it's because we put in a ton of
So
work.
you're out of
back
that
then.
undertow of external expectation. It's like we're not thrashing around under the ocean anymore trying to figure out which way is up. Like
Also with this album, I feel like we we made it on our own. Then we got a record deal, and then we quickly realized in the record deal that things haven't really changed in the industry, and labels are kind of doing what they think they should be doing to succeed.
it's a tough time.
And if it's not instantly successful, they kind of move on to the next thing. So it forced us to carry on with how we had made the record, which was we're going to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
It forced us to go, all right, well, we're not going to give up on this thing. We're going to go make the videos ourselves. We're going to go do this ourselves. We're going to make the merch ourselves. We're going to go. It made us a band at the start of their career, which I think in a way is why this feels like a rebirth. And the one thing that we've realized throughout all of that is that the more our identity is on this thing, the more we enjoy it.
The more we want and more we enjoy it too.
Yes, yes. It's not even about the success or anything. Now we're just going like, all right, when we get home, what do you guys want to do? Like, let's go do something. Let's film something. Let's, like it's kind of opened our eyes to just how creative you can be. And it's not just about like, all right, tour's over. Now let's go get in the studio and write some songs. And the world is our oyster. And we have an incredible fan base, and they're growing daily. And people want what we're selling. And it's never felt like a bigger thrill than it does right now, because like I say, this is us going in there, doing something, looking at the work that we've created, showing it to the world, seeing that reaction and going like, oh man, that felt good. Felt a lot better than making an album and being secretive about it and going like, oh, let's give them a little
because
taste.
we're all here going, guys, you can't release it like that. You got to do it like this. And then when you show up here, you should show up like this. And then don't say too much here and don't do that. And like, I get it. Like
We did that for a long time.
For a long time, right? I felt like, it was eggshells for a long time, right?
Everything, but it was just overthought. And, we, in a way, I feel like we thought we were going to be like those other artists that secretly drop something or do and get the world's attention. It's like, that's not who we are. We'll get your attention, but it might take us a second. We're not that splashy kind of band. And now it's just like the work doesn't feel like work. Hiding it from people feels like work.
Yeah.
It's more now. You see Zach Bryan, you see these artists that are just so unapologetic and raw with how they show the world their music, because people want something they can relate to.
Yeah.
They want to be like, hey, I have a guitar, I have a phone, I want to write a song and film myself, and who knows, maybe I'll be playing a football stadium like he does,
Yeah.
And so for me, it's more about...
Or even just a song like Split Screen, where I get to go and listen to that, and then I have to go and actually acknowledge that I'm, at least from my takeaway from it, because everyone's going to have their own, is I have to work harder at maintaining my relationships and keeping things closer and not being quite so distant, metaphor or otherwise, from the people I care about, right? I've got to be accountable for my half of this relationship and what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah.
It's inspiring in so many different ways. The best writing you've done in a long, long time, I think, as a band, and the lyrics are incredible. I think you know that.
Thank you.
I think you nailed it, right?
Yeah.
Good job, buddy.
Yeah. The only reason I know that I nailed it, or I feel that I nailed it, is because it never felt like work. I never felt like I was sitting there going like, okay, we're going in tomorrow, I need to have some lyrics. It was like, how much do we need? Because I've already written 5 verses for every song.
Where were you writing these?
I'm ready.
Where were you writing these verses? Can you give us an insight into what the mood or the environment and what that allowed you to do it?
It's a notebook, right?
It was so inspiring at the time. It was just a little office in my house. And when I would walk in there, it felt like, have you seen that, I think it's A Beautiful Mind or whatever, the movie? And it's like stuff's kind of like...
Yeah, just pulling it from somewhere else.
That's what it was in that moment. And now I go back to that very office and it's not happening.
Yeah. Which is awesome too, because it makes you realize magic is real.
But it also makes me realize, for so long I thought that I could only write songs at my farm because I had written some big ones out there. And then I just realized, like, it doesn't matter where you are. The room isn't what's inspiring the song. It's where your head is that inspires the song or inspires the music or whatever it is that you're doing. So, I mean, like I say, there are already songs that I feel like because of that, now I'm looking further than, okay, I have some melodies and I know that some quirky lyrics and stuff is going to work. Now it's like, no, that's not enough. Like, I truly want to challenge myself and see just how much I can speak to the masses.
Is there a song on this record that you feel really challenged you and the band and as a whole, you feel like made you feel different as a band about what you can achieve?
There were a few moments. Scene was one of them because that was one that we all felt good about it, but we were unsure.
Well, we had a demo that was just insane. Like a demo that made me emotional. It made Kid emotional. Matt didn't love it, which was totally, I totally get that. It's kind of a weird thing. But then we just tried to recreate that demo over and over and over. And we tried it this way and it didn't work. And then another way and it didn't work. And we couldn't find that magic. And we just ended up kind of using a lot of parts of the demo.
Yeah, you can hear it. You can really, that's in that particular song, not to bring it back there, but I really hear the emotional center of the band, which isn't always present in anyone's music. You can't stay there forever. Like everyone kind of dances on all different parts of the spectrum, but there's a real center sometimes that you get to that, like you say, it brings emotion.
Oh yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, people really reacted to that song. I mean, it was immediate. We kind of loved it when it was finished. We thought it was cool. We kind of put it towards the end of the record. Is it the last song? The last song.
Perfect word.
So yeah, I always go to the last song to see like, oh, what did they like, but they didn't know, they were unsure of or whatever.
See, to me, I always look at last songs differently. I always look at the last song as being like either a step to what's going to happen next.
Oh, that's cool.
Or I think of them as like an incredibly important like ribbon on it. First impressions are great. Last impressions, as we'll find out on our last day, will be more important probably. How we go out or how we're remembered or what we did. And that's what I think of a song like Scene does, is it says to you, yeah, your instincts are right about us on this album. Everything is by design and on purpose. We've done this to make you feel this way.
I can say we've never had a record that I have listened to top to bottom. I don't know any of them that I've ever really been able to do that without at least walking out of the room for a second.
Yeah.
This album, I've been able to do that every time I put it on and find something. I feel like a fan because I'm finding little Easter eggs and finding things that make me go like, ooh, man, that's cool. I forgot that we did that. Or that's, So that also lets you know when you're doing something from the heart or when it's a challenge.
Yeah.
This album didn't feel like a challenge. It felt like every day we ran into the studio and we couldn't wait. And the last day in the studio, we looked at each other and we were sad. We were just like, I just want to keep going, forever.
Yeah. Well, now you can. Can we talk about the songs that show up every now and then that I feel push you into an environment of revealing something about your life or your relationships or each other, your marriages, relationships past and present that feel beautifully vicarious, like we're being led into a real sort of insight into something that's very personal, the real truth that's come through. Split Screen has that feeling, how I feel about Beautiful War. There's a few moments there that feel like, you've stepped up as a band and written songs that make me feel beautifully uncomfortable to listen to. And I wonder kind of how it feels when you're making those songs and how you get over that hump and how you execute on those moments when you realize that like I'm bearing something that's deeper. We've had, to your point, lots of wonderful abstract paintings from you, but those moments that really cut to the core that you see the people sing to you when you perform them, it means something different.
I think the challenge with that is a lot of times you don't realize that you're doing it because still to me, I feel like there are moments of honesty and then I kind of
pepper some kind of abstract.
Put stuff around it to kind of, to distract from it or whatever. Even like use somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like at this point in my life, I'm just now really starting to understand the impact of the lyric of use somebody.
Which is what?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's the message. I think it's, when I look out in the crowd and I'm seeing all these different people from all these different walks of life and they're just screaming these lyrics back at me. And it's like, I feel like at the time when it was written, I felt like I could use somebody, And right now, I feel like everyone feels like they could use somebody.
What I always loved about that song, which I don't even know if it's ever, I've spoken about this with my friends before, is the double meaning of that. And I've always loved the idea that it can spin either way. The idea of like, I could use somebody to help me, but I could also use somebody quite easily the way I want to use them in order to serve my own purpose.
That's two things he said that is like giving me some ideas.
Bro, you were good.
Yeah, like signaling the last song on the album,
Finally,
signaling the
someone
next
gets it.
album.
Yeah, but you know,
Genius.
I appreciate it. But you know what I mean. It's like I remember someone very smart saying to me once, like, just because you ask how someone's doing doesn't make you helpful. Like, be thoughtful with your thoughtfulness. Like, don't emotionally mug people to make yourself feel good. And I always loved you somebody because I felt like there was an element of it that was acknowledging the fact that in order to serve my purpose, I could use somebody to do that quite easily.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
Any truth in that, do you think, when you wrote it?
Probably because I was pretty cocky at that point in my life. And there was a lot of challenging. I felt like I was being challenged. And I felt like, in a way, I thought I was kind of I had my own language, so no one would pick up on it. So a lot of the songs I was challenging them. And a lot of times I was calling them out in songs.
Let me go back and listen to the back catalog.
more obvious than
Yeah,
others.
some are more obvious than others.
Oh, yeah.
But there were definitely times when I was like, I could go to bed with everyone mad at me, but tomorrow I know that I can
write a song.
I can say something.
Yeah. Little
and I can
personal
have
victory.
I can have everyone in the crowd pointing fingers at you,
Crazy.
So there was that. So and the double meaning thing, I always love a good double meaning. So I don't know that in my mind, I don't know that that's what I was doing, but who knows? It could be.
A lot of the songs didn't make the album too, like Stupid Idiot Bass Player.
Yeah.
That never made it past the demo stage.
Which is ironic because they had a great bass part.
In Beachside, you say, he's got an attitude and it's making me want to fight. Who's that line about?
Matthew.
Who was it not about? No, it's probably Matthew.
I think it was me. I had an attitude.
I've got a bunch about you.
Which is funny
love you
because I
too.
think when you first came out, the whole idea of the three brothers in the band was just like, that was just like a fuse that was waiting to be lit. And everyone was like, oh, these three aren't going to get past album number 2, right? But then as time progressed, you realize that, you have a bad attitude. And I was like, no, I'm joking. No, but it's interesting how the dynamic of the band shifted over time.
I feel like throughout our history, everyone kind of like rises when someone, falls a little, and we kind of take the slack. And that's been happening since the beginning. And maybe that was just a time where some were feeling less inspired and I was more inspired, Same with this album. Kayla was,
Right up there.
a little more inspired and come and go,
Yeah. Did you feel that at the time when you were making those records that it was a moment for Matthew to step in and...
I probably didn't notice. I did notice, like, personally, I'll like write bass lines, and sometimes songs are written around that, and I didn't really have. There was like a spell where it was I was not involved in that. I would write with the guys, obviously, and write my parts, but
had a
from Pickup
bunch of-
Truck to When You See Yourself, Are You Far Away? There's nothing. That's 2 albums.
When You See
worth.
Yourself, I had a lot of demo stuff that I would bring and just like play them stuff. And
It's so interesting that I know that the Pixies changed your life, and that's why that's one of the reasons why I love the way that your bass playing integrates within the chemistry of the band, and how a lot of my favorite Kings of Leon songs tend to start with the bass. There's just a sense of like, it's something about again getting to the soul of the music. The bass is just the resonance, the frequency. It's all frequency, right? That's what I'm learning over the course of my life. Is everything's frequency.
Absolutely.
And like, your frequency when you start, like even a song like Rainbow Ball, when it comes in, it's just like, oh shit, here we go.
Yeah.
Jared's back, and this is fucking awesome. And then there's a classic Jared bass line of being obscure and odd in all the right notes, and then perfectly in line with all the right notes. So we talk a little bit about that song, and just like I think we're old enough and ugly enough now to acknowledge that kind of part of the band, and starting these songs, some of these big anthems with the bass, and giving you that chance to sort of lead in.
Yeah, I think that's probably a little bit conscious. If we're, arranging the songs, they might be like, well, it kind of came from the bass line. Let's start there. And Rainbow Ball was, like Caleb said earlier, and you mentioned the magic in the room and just like kind of letting the universe take over. I was completely in another world writing that. Like came to with Caleb like kind of freaking out, being like, keep playing that. And I didn't even realize I was playing. You know, if you're a musician, you kind of you'll know this. Like you can just go into a zone. People are talking to you and you're just playing something and you're just in a deep daydream in another realm. And that happened with that song. And I was just playing it and Caleb ran in and started singing. Nathan started playing.
Straight away.
Yeah. And it was just, then it was a song. We were excited about it.
Wow. How long do you reckon start to finish from the minute you recognized what he was playing was inspiring to the minute that you felt you had an arrangement?
Well, it was crazy because the day before that, I was in my son's playroom and he wanted to play with construction vehicles or whatever. So I was like, all right. And I started like singing while he was playing. I was like, this is the construction site song, which ended up being the Rainbow Ball lyrics.
Wow.
First thing I said, got my old friend back. He was gone quite a while. I won't stand for that. Good times were had by all accounts. Kid cut off the accounts part. He thought it was too many times. But anyways, the next morning I woke up and there was a song that came on YouTube or something, and it was like it had some energy, and I was like, oh man, it just spoke to me just for a second.
Yeah.
The next day I didn't even like that song anymore. But it spoke to me, and it was doing like this thing with the drum that's going like pop, 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 pop. And so we got in the studio, and I had gone to the restroom, and Jared started going.
You could hear it from the bathroom? Hurry the fuck up, hurry the fuck up.
Yeah. My pants were open when I came out. That's what he didn't tell you. When he did come out of his trance, I was there.
He was
with my
peeing
pants
on
wide
me.
open.
Still peeing.
But I was like, that's it. That's the thing. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, that's the thing that I heard. And it just went boom, boom,
Wow,
boom,
wow,
and
wow.
stacked up. And the lyric was already there. Everything just kind of happened, and we all were like, okay, well, let's do that again.
Oh, I love that bit when you go, good times, we're had, bio.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just so, it's writing at its most unobstructed. It's like, that shouldn't make sense. Perfect.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah, and I feel like, there were albums like Because of the Times, maybe even Come Around Sundown, where that was happening more often because we were all in such close quarters. We didn't necessarily have outside relationships. We were either living in a house together or we were rehearsing all the time.
Knocked Up has to be from that for sure.
That's what that was,
The
yeah.
arrangement on that song is so beautiful, even to the point when it disappears and you think we're done.
Well, that
and
one
then you come
happened-
back in, it's like, oh, we're not done. And it's such a relief because I don't want it to be done.
We
That
were
one
done.
happened live in person. Like what
Yeah.
you're hearing was actually...
That was the second take.
You can
Yeah.
hear the door close when the
Angela.
producer came in and said, "Just
Let's
let's
keep
just start it
going.
again.
Run
Let's just
it
start it
again.
again."
What about the one where
And
they,
so we started over. That's why he sings the first verse.
oh, and that's why you keep going.
Again. And then we just faded it out halfway through. We played that twice, and that was
Yeah.
just 2 takes. And that has like all kinds of crazy fun stuff. I sang the whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, well, is it you in the background who does it on your own?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like you're just demoing another parts of it on your own way
It
in the
got
back?
caught in the, I was singing, just kind of like messing around. I had an idea while we were playing it, and I did it. And Angel's like, that got picked up in the kick drum. And so I was like, oh, shit. So Caleb was like, keep it. I'll sing over it. And he just went in and sang over it, and it became a part of the song.
Unobstructed.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful
fun.
shit. It's magic music. It's. I've spent so much of my life trying to understand it. I understand it less and less every single time I try. And I'm by the way, that's why I try now, to understand it less. You know what I mean? To talk about try to figure out the ethereal sides of things and just give them some context. You know what I mean? You're no stranger to this. I was watching the doc again the other day. The experiences you had in church, being visited by the Holy Ghost, the idea of being carried away by something and being transported somewhere else at the time. It hit me much harder when I watched it this time around because it really made me think like, oh, that's kind of music in a way. There's parallels from that experience to like channeling something creatively with music. Does that resonate with you, the similarity between the two?
I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily compare those two, but I can say that yes, in order for music to be made the way that it's supposed to be made, you have to completely lose yourself in it. And once you've
Surrender it.
found the formula That's the worst thing possible. Because even if you
Isn't it like you're doing God's work if you do that a little bit?
exactly, and even if you think like I know how to do this, you know, you're missing the key element, which is surrender and just like okay, realizing that what is about to happen, I'm going to play a role in it, you know, but this is supposed to be happening right now. This song is supposed to be written. And I really do feel like if I'm not open, then the song that was meant to be a Kings of Leon song will still be a song in a different form, and someone else will just happen to be the person that had the butterfly net that caught it that day. And I missed it because I was worrying about life, or I was doing this, and I wasn't just opened up to it. And I feel like now I'm to a place where I'm like, all right, what do you got?
So isn't it
I'm
really
ready.
about those two words? And people say, okay, what is the purpose? What's the meaning of life? What are these big questions we kick around to try and give ourselves some kind of earthly context, right? Which is ludicrous in itself. The pursuit is absolutely ludicrous, right? But the closest thing I've ever gotten are those two words, right? I let go. Those are kind of the only two words I think. It's required for us to exist, and it's required for us to depart.
And it's also so hard to understand it, you know. Only when you experience it can you go like, oh my God. And that isn't even easy or possible necessarily to recreate.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I'm glad you brought that up, but because I wanted to try to sort of be a little more granular with what it is to be young and to experience something like to be taken by the Spirit and to find yourself transported into a place where others are witnessing behavior that you may not even acknowledge that you're conducting yourself. You are completely and utterly captured by something that is beyond the earthly comprehension, right?
Mm-hmm.
And can you remember how old you were when that happened to you for the first time? I mean, you were young, right? I know in the documentary it says you were young.
Mm-hmm. I was 5.
How old were
I
you?
was probably 7.
7?
I think I was 11 years old.
Never.
Never. So when that's happened for you at that age, what kind of impact does that have on you in terms of what happens when you come to, like what the world represents and all of its infrastructure? When you're taken from out of the infrastructure and told that that's not actually the only reality, right? That there's something that can capture you and inspire you and make you feel something that most of us, I'm with you, I've never had that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, I had bad knees, so I couldn't go to the altar. So
Right. It was bad on the knees, right? Yeah.
I
But
remember
had you
feeling
gone to the
like
altar, your knees would have been healed.
Yeah.
doubt it.
No, there's like it's hard to explain, but like a cleanliness, like a feeling of just being extremely clean. It was like you got to start over. It was a really weird feeling. I mean, I still go to church, and every time I go, I feel like that when I leave. I feel like it's like you get kind of washed and you start over, and then immediately I sin, and I'm bad again, and I get dirty. But every Sunday, it just feels like you're clean. I don't know.
Yeah, I felt like with me, it was something that I'd always heard about, something that I'd always witnessed, but it never happened to me. And so I always felt like, man, why not me? Why is it not happening? And I remember we were in, I think, Tulsa, Oklahoma. The first time I went down to the altar, and I felt like it had happened, and I was just like, it happened, and I feel like no one around me realized it. So it was kind of like my own personal triumph. But yeah, it's an experience that I think probably used to happen a little more often than it does these days. But yeah, it like I said, it goes back to just surrender and just kind of being open to whatever is out there, whatever it is, if it's religion, if it's music, if it's just the universe. Anytime I feel like you can just kind of say like, all right, there's something bigger than me. I'm just one of all these ants marching around. But if I open myself up and allow myself to, surrender to the music or the God or whatever it is, something greater than me is going to happen.
It also speaks, I think, to those moments in your life when you're wrestling with those two sides of things, right? The idea of something bigger than me, surrender, but at the same time, like, I got all this energy around me, driving me to go and perform for these people and to be successful. Like success seems at odds with that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean as a concept? Like I know that it's a big part of being human, and we all have goals and ambitions, and ultimately we want to be successful at whatever it is that we choose to be successful at, from micro to macro. But it seems to be at odds with the realization that actually it's just all kind of out of our control to some degree.
Yeah, I think it's quite arrogant for anyone. I'm not pointing fingers. You know, obviously we all live our lives.
Yeah.
But for anyone to assume that they are as great as they can possibly be, that to me is arrogant. There's always room for improvement. And if that means seeking out salvation or seeking out a better life for yourself or that promotion or whatever it is, like, I feel like you always want to have something that you're kind of reaching for.
Yeah.
What is success? What is greatness? You know,
Right.
it's all defined by you. Like success to somebody is completely unsuccessful life to somebody else.
Well, what's beautiful about this album and where you are now is it feels like that sort of very righteous version of success, that idea of what is going to inspire me or you, and in order to continue to do what you love to do and be at your best on every level too, not just as a band. Because by the way, being the best band in the world often means you're not the best friend, son, husband, business partner, bandmate. Often it's the complete odds with each other, right? And you probably experienced that. And I think now it feels like, we have the people around us who want us to be the best people.
And I think that you see that in our fans. You see that in the people that we work with, is they also want to be looking up to someone that is looking up to something else, or someone that is, honest with, like, hey man, I'm far from perfect. That's who you want to follow. You don't want to follow the person
that's inspiring. It doesn't. You have to be the best in the world to be inspiring. You have to be the most honest version of yourself to be inspiring.
Yeah, you look at Michael Jordan, you look at Tom Brady, you look at these athletes. People will tell you, being around them wasn't always easy because they are always reaching for greater, always wanting to be greater. And I feel like that's the thing that inspires us all, is knowing that we're all human, that we're all going to make mistakes, and that the goal in life is to always be striving for something more. And that could mean doing away with what you think you're good at and saying, like, okay, now I want something else. I need a new challenge. I need something else. But I feel like we're all just kind of looking around at each other going like, man, this doesn't feel right. What's happening? Like, who's going to lead us? Who's going to be the person that stands up and says, like, look, I'll take that. Give me the torch. I'll go. You follow me. And I feel like we're all looking for that in some way.
Yeah,
Yep. We're all looking for someone to kind of stand up and say, like, hey, I'm not perfect, but I'll take the hit. I'll be the guy that goes out there and makes the sacrifice, and we can all learn and grow from it.
What's the reunion like now? Do you guys still go back? Does it still happen?
We were just talking about it. It definitely still happens. It's kind of branched out to more than family now. So
Right.
Yeah, now it's sponsored. Red Bull presents Followell Family
I
Reunion.
think it's on ESPN too, isn't it?
The Ocho.
The Ocho, yeah. And a lot of our families passed away. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the older ones that we always went and wanted to see.
Like the real party animals
Yeah.
died.
I took an RV down with my kids, and we visited when there was no one there, and it still got that magic.
Still got the magic.
Good feeling
Did you
from
jump in the creek?
childhood. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. My kids will be like, "Hey, Daddy, can we go to that place with the creek, and like in the park and stuff?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, reunion, yeah."
the place where them hills have eyes.
Would you think about it? And this because this is a nice way for us to kind of start to put some context on all of this. What about a revived reunion? You've all got these kids now who are healthy and happy. God bless. And you're not just surviving as a band. You've come through this intact with families, with the really important stuff that, trust me, not everybody makes it through with that. It can come at a cost doing what you love to that degree. And so a different way to celebrate, right? A different reason. I'm sure you have reasons to come together all the time, but like something that, because what I loved about it is I loved the sense of occasion that event seemed to bring out in people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we do that enough as families. We have Christmas and we have Thanksgiving and we have these things that bring us together, but sometimes just something that just kind of brings everyone together away from like the calendar. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we look forward to it all year long. It was
It's the best.
The only time we could really get together.
and it's also not good to assume just because one generation is gone
That's right.
that something is over. It's
We
like
shouldn't
no,
deny
now
our kids the chance to do this too.
exactly, and we should be able to do it better than our parents did it because we've learned from them.
Sponsored.
Yep, there you go. Maybe a working toilet, spruce the place up a little bit.
I mean, we could make our kids rough it too, like go to a 4-star resort. Or something.
I would wonder what you're going to say.
That's what I always love about you,
But
Jared,
yeah.
is you're unashamedly bougie. Yeah, go on.
But I think in the
Fly
future,
commercially.
I think in the future I could see us all going back and kind of reuniting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Age seems to be sitting really well with you. I mean, you've all got your hair, which is a blessing in itself. God bless a rock band who still has their hair, you know what I mean?
It's amazing.
Great doctors.
If you start to get successful and your hair grows back, it's like a
It's
miracle.
amazing how that happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like,
Your skin starts to tighten.
it's incredible, right? It's like your body's realizing at the same time, I need to look better.
It's like your cheeks are filled.
Yeah, it's like your teeth get wider, teeth get a little wider. It's great. No, it is. I mean, we've done this many times in different forms. Tried to put context around music from the Sublime, which was day one on that couch. He was so stoned. You in particular were the most stoned person I feel at that time I'd ever met in my entire life. I think I said on that show, Nathan from Kings of Leon is the most stoned person on the planet just now, just this second. In 5 minutes, it'll be somebody else. But right now, it's Nathan.
He's changed very little.
Still chill.
Well, the world has caught up with you, my friend.
Yes.
Right through to, those conversations that we had during some of this. I've spoken to you on every album. I saw the struggles. I was with you on the brown couch when Sex on Fire was becoming the #1 song in the world, and you were fucking miserable.
You want to know what actually happened? I was at a Mexican restaurant with my wife. I don't think we were married yet. And someone called me and was like, hey, we got this like quick press, this interview. Zane Lowe wants to call you.
That's right.
And you were at a radio station or something.
That was at Radio 1.
Yeah. And I think you were debuting Sex on Fire.
It was the hottest record in the world.
And you're like, here we go, Sex on Fire. And I heard like, and you're like, all right, Caleb, good to see you. I was like, all right, see you later. And I like hung up and went and sat back down at the table and we're having like a little margarita. She's like, what was it? I was like, I just heard our song on the radio for the first time. She's like, how'd it feel? I was like, it felt bigger on the radio than it does when I hear it on the album.
That's what I do, my friend. I make things sound fucking huge.
And that's one of the most memorable times I've ever heard one of our songs because hearing it through the phone, I went like, oh, I think this one's going to hit,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. I mean, I remember it was that moment when everybody, like I said, you just played Glastonbury. Everybody knew. Everybody who knows knew you were one of the biggest bands in the world. You working at the highest level. You had big fucking tunes. Everyone's saying Charmer. No one's not singing Charmer, right? So everyone knows, but we were waiting. Like, are they going to give us that song? And I remember, man, weirdly getting emotional. I remember that song, hearing it for the first time at Radio 1. They were like, oh, the Kings of Leon's and we're going to make a hottest record. I'm like, can I hear it first? And they're like, yeah, and they play it. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, this is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out to be a brilliant problem, but a problem nonetheless.
Yeah.
I know it was a tough time. I know it wasn't an easy thing. Look, no one finds that easy.
My
no matter how
son
prepared
still
you are.
says, Dad, I cannot believe that you were the #2 rock band in 2009.
Who was the #1?
Oh, I don't remember. Oh, God.
Coldplay?
Coldplay.
Oh, I wish I knew. I think it might have been Foo
Coldplay
Fighters.
beat us in the rock categories, and then somehow
It
we
was
beat.
some YouTube poll or something. It
Right.
was like, it's just the funniest thing he's ever said. I can't believe you were like the #2 rock band of
But I was-
2009.
I was telling the guys at our last show a couple nights ago in Boston, I was like, isn't it crazy that 16 years after that and You Somebody came out, you would think it was the #1 hottest song on the charts right now when we play those songs.
Yeah.
I was like, this is like a band in the year 2000 playing a song from 1984.
Yeah.
And getting, like, do you realize the reaction? It
You are
has
Duran
never
Duran.
gone down.
You are Duran Duran.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, it's true. It's true. And I know, I mean, you much as you've tried, I mean, what's that song in the set list? Like 6? You're trying to bury that fucker. Can't do it. Can't do it.
That fire won't die.
Have you ever opened with it? That
Probably
would
if
be,
we were
I think
very
so.
angry.
I think like once or I think
Yeah.
we tried it once. We were
Maybe
like,
a
that
private
was awful.
gig or something.
Like people were like running in because you know that
Oh, yeah,
when
of
you
course,
start, you got
sometimes
to
they
give
give you
them
a
you got to
drink.
give them a second to get in and you start. And we were just like we just gave them that song first off.
Dude, did I fucking miss Sex on Fire? Did I fucking miss Sex on Fire? Are you fucking kidding me?
At least
Fucking kidding me?
at least half the crowd was like, well, I guess we can just leave now.
yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, speaking of bands who used to do that, I mean, the first time I ever saw Arctic Monkeys, ever, the Astoria show, when they were the hottest band in Britain. I mean, they had the 2 demos that had been on the radio, and then there was the demo that was changing hands amongst fans. You know the story. So all the fans knew the songs, but we only had the 2 songs because we couldn't get our hands on the demo. So we had Fake Tales and we had Dance Floor. And they booked and sold out the Astoria. Long live the Astoria. 2,000 people. And all the industry were up on the balcony. Of course we were, because you couldn't get anywhere near the stage on the floor. It was just fans. And the band come on. They come on to like, I don't know, a Dr. Dre song, really loud as well. So it wasn't like background music that like, oh, we're going to fucking be dynamic after this intro. It was like the best produced rap song of all time, really loud.
Oh man.
And they came onto that, and then they started with Dance Floor and went straight into Fake Tales. And they played the only 2 songs anyone on the balcony knew, and then played the rest of the demos afterwards for everybody else.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It was just like, it was a feeling back in those days where I felt like, and it's very much happening now with Charlie XCX and some artists where Brad is back, but Brat was live and fucking well back then. I think you guys were brats, Monkeys were brats. You were just running around challenging everybody, just like, oh, you like this? Try this on for size. Way better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Way better.
Yeah, I felt like we always kind of made choices that we would then look back and go like, wow, what were we thinking? We really were just trying to make people angry or trying to challenge them in a way that they weren't necessarily deserving of. You know,
No, but wait, do you think part of that was because of the way that you stepped into the room and people questioned it, and there was a sense of like a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, like,
Oh, yeah.
fuck you.
Oh yeah, and we come from, you know, we're family. We grew up playing sports together and stuff, and it was always us versus the world. So when we burst onto the scene, and it was the comparisons were the Strokes or this or, you know, and there was always just kind of like a little backhanded compliment. It was never like, here's Kings of Leon, they're a good band. You know, it was always like, they're the version of this or the. So we always had that chip on our shoulder, but we also always looked at bands that did stuff their own way, and we're like, God, it's so badass. I want to be like that. So we opened Glastonbury with a song that no one had ever heard. And then we go out and play shows like in Nashville. We sold out this show and we went out and played our brand new album, start to finish. No one had ever heard a note of it. And
They were
then we
livid.
played
Furious. Furious.
I wouldn't be surprised if they would have been, but our fans have always kind of come along with it. And now at this point, they kind of expect, you know, us to do things the way that we want to do it.
Because, and I say this in full knowledge of how ludicrous this sounds, it's actually bigger than the songs, which is crazy to acknowledge because the songs are really big. Like you got a hell of a catalog now of really big songs, and you've added a lot off this album to that too. If you just want to put them in a hierarchy of the
It's a
biggest
problem.
songs, it's seriously.
We're gonna have to play 3-hour shows soon because
You are, 'cause I
everybody
checked your
wants to
set
hear
list.
everything. You
Yeah,
know? And
you
we
missed
want to
some
make
shit.
everybody happy. You know,
Yeah, you're
Or
missing
we're
some
just going to have to be the jam band or the, you know, the band that goes out and plays a completely different set list every night, and we don't give the people every song that they want to hear because you're never going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like with this tour, we have just been challenging ourselves every step of the way, and every time we do it, the scarier it is, the payoff is so much more massive. Like we're looking at each other. We will, on several occasions of the tour, we've kind of been walking out onto the stage with certain member of the band going like, oh, we can't play this song. Why are we playing it?
We
and
have
as
this
soon
thing called Song for the City where we play a different song in each city,
Yep.
like a deep cut or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
And that's what he's talking about. So
Right.
like it's songs we never played before.
Yep.
Songs that we've only played once. So
the
it's like
scarier
really,
the song, we walk off stage, that same band member will be saying, we got to put that in the set list permanently. And I agree. We are
well, it's a good way to
discovering
find out. Yeah.
we are discovering songs in our catalog that we're like, why have we not been playing this? And you come out with a record and the record dies down and you assume people forget about those songs. And it's like, no, we've never played this album here.
It's fucking crazy. I mean, I made my I have a very personal little list of all time. It's like all time Justin Vernon, all time Public Enemy, all time whatever. It's like 5 or 6 of them. And I actually made an all time Kings of Leon yesterday because I was like, I can't put this into perspective anymore about how I can't listen to every album all the way through. That's like 9 hours of my day. So I need to do what streaming is designed to do and make a
Right.
playlist where I have
Make your own album.
my all time
only got-
KOL.
It's got 2 songs on there.
It's 4 actually. You'd be surprised which ones they are. No, dude, it's
What is the first song on the set list and what's the last song?
Black Thumbnails first,
I knew it was first.
Mm.
and the last one now will be seen.
No,
But
you go.
I actually ended it until that moment with Knocked Up. I finished with Knocked
Okay.
Up. But that's also I like the fact that they were the same album. But it's like it covers everything. Find Me's on there, Milk's on there, Pyro's on there, Slow Night So Long's on there, fucking Walls is on there, Tonight's on there.
Tonight. That's
We-
the one he's
we
talking. That's the
played-
one he's talking about. That
We played tonight in
That's
Austin.
awesome.
it was like
Austin, Dallas, or
was
Houston,
crazy
one of the
response.
Texas shows.
It was as we were playing it, we were looking at each other going like,
But I've been saying since Mechanical Bull, that was like my song for Mechanical Bull, and it kind of got pushed to later in the sequence.
Yeah.
But I was always like, man, Tonight should
Tonight's
be a single,
fucking incredible.
and it should have. I feel like we should have led with it.
Let's talk about M Television. That is in the set list. You are playing that.
Yeah.
Let's tell us the story about making that in relation to the album.
M Television. That was one that it was the only one on the album that I was a little unsure about, because we had been kicking around this melody for a couple years, which ended up being the chorus melody. But I had another song I was kind of working on that ended up being kind of the rest of that song. So anyways, we recorded it, and I'd heard about there's a difference in the mirror image and the old photograph. And sometimes when you're making an album, if you pull up an old song that everyone knows and you've tried, but it didn't work, it's not as exciting as the mirror image. It's something you're kind of delving into the past a little bit. But when it all came together, you noticed, the engineer and other people and wives and people were all gravitating to that song, and we went and made music videos or visualizers for every song, and there was one song that we didn't make one for, and it was M Television, and we just kept kicking the can down the road and kicking it down the road. And I feel like there was a reason for that, because I do feel like it's gonna serve a huge purpose. I think that song is important. When we play it live, from the very first time we played it live, we all looked at each other and went like, this one's different.
What's really cool about that too is at some point later on, as the song starts to become even more of a fan favorite tour after tour, and it really starts to find its life, its identity.
Yeah.
One day, like way further down the line, we can just unannounced just do a visualizer for it, just for shits and giggles.
Well, we're doing a music
I think
video.
we're gonna do something for it.
We're doing a video in Nashville.
This is the only one we want to complete the. We want
Yeah.
to have every
Called
single-
M Television, so we're hoping we can get it on VH1.
Yeah, well, if you're lucky,
Yeah.
or the box. There's a lot of places you got to try and do.
much music.
Music.
We did play
Do you remember
that.
Music TV? Holy shit!
Yeah,
God, I do.
that was so fun. What a great time.
The dentist.
We did have Zach Bryan is a fan of ours, and he came to our studio and we played him the album. And after that song, he looked at us and said, "Well, you got your hit."
That's cool.
And I was like,
It's
hope
the one.
you're right.
It's the new song that we play live. That even if you don't know it, it seems that people really like it. You know, like I feel like everybody there doesn't necessarily know the new stuff, but that one goes over.
People
really
love
great.
an acoustic guitar on a fast song.
Man, I
They do.
really
That's like
that
the
too.
American
Echo and the
way.
Bunnymen, baby.
And I play that. It's the only song I ever play in drop C, so I'm like way down there, like
shit.
Deftones or something. You
Your
know?
guitar tech's like working overtime on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
Got to get your guitar C. It must be really cool, actually. See what happens when you uncork the bottle. Now I got to have another glass of wine. It must be really cool as well when you realize that you're at a point where you're making this music and serving your own purpose, but then people like Zach Bryan, when he shows up and gives you your flowers, it must feel kind of nice to know you're making contemporary music that's still inspiring him, and it's not just like, oh, you're an influence on me. Thank you for all the records you've made before.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the goal, to inspire someone. That's amazing.
But him, I mean, he's a high bar.
Absolutely.
Right. I don't
He's
know.
massive.
I don't really know much.
And
but-
now he's kind of like, it's the favors being returned. Like he's kind of inspiring us a little bit,
Yeah.
with the way that he does stuff. And like Caleb said earlier, just his way of doing things is so refreshing and
That's
so
a great
awesome.
point, actually. Like, it makes total sense that you guys have met each other at this moment in life, because he has built such an incredible momentum around just doing what moves him and not playing the game at all. You guys are doing a very similar thing. It's like you've stepped out of this infrastructure and you're kind of being equally inspired by him to like, hey, we can back ourselves here the way he's backed himself.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you can just kind of give yourself more freedom to be yourself, that's like, it's hard to come by. It's hard to convince yourself that that's the right way.
Yeah.
But it truly is the right way. The way that you're going to succeed and have long-term mental health and success is to just do things the way that you know feels the best to you.
Yeah.
Because everyone is kind of just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Everybody.
Every record label, every manager,
Every human
agent,
being.
every
We're all doing
band.
it.
We're all just kind of going like, all right, let's try this. Let's see what works. But when you do something that feels good, then it's like, whatever happens, happens. We did it exactly the way that we wanted to do it. And I feel like with Back to M Television, that's another song that has taken on a life since we've hit the road, because I feel like that song is what this whole tour and this whole process has been. It's a lyric that I was kind of a little nervous about because I thought it was maybe a little corny. And now that lyric, I sing it and I'm singing it to myself. When I say, these are the ones you relive and you'll never regret, I feel like that is us as a band looking at each other going like, we are making the memories right now that we will be old looking at each other going like, wow, you remember Can We Please Have Fun? You remember that tour when we played Forest Hills? And, like that's what's happening right now. So I feel like that song is the song of this tour. And I hope that it, has a life and people connect with it.
It already does.
But
and
if
people already
they
are.
don't,
Here's the thing about life, man, is that like we want things to happen, we want them to happen. We all fall into that trap every day, whether we're waiting for a bus or we're just trying to get by, or why isn't this happening right now? Time. That song knows what it is, and it knows where it knows where the people are. It will find the people. That's the beauty of music. It just will.
I agree.